Hello, this is Kevin Scanlan with All City Real Estate. As you might remember, here at All City Real Estate, we are big believers in a real estate world where knowledge and information can cross over broker boundaries, such that we're all fiduciaries at the highest possible level for our clients. We want to make sure that information and knowledge is spread across those broker boundaries so that we're all better agents and we can work better together on the transactions that we undertake. And to that end, today we're going to talk about an issue that I'm seeing more and more confusion about, even though this document came out a couple of years ago, and that is the Appraisal Addendum. So today we're going to talk about the three components of the Appraisal Addendum, what the Appraisal Addendum is, and more importantly than that, what it is not. And what I mean by that is a lot of the confusion has to do with the dynamic between the third-party financing addendum and the appraisal addendum. Two documents that actually have opposite functions most of the time. And I'll get to what I mean a little bit later. Here at All City Real Estate, we enjoy letting these types of trainings and videos reach as many agents as possible, whether they're All City agents or not, because we want you to be the best agent that you can possibly be. So let's dive right in. We're going to start with the third-party financing addendum. As you probably know, in the universe of underwriting, there are two distinct worlds. There is the world of buyer approval, that is, the ability in the eyes of the lender of the buyer to qualify to buy that house. Completely separate from that buyer approval world, there is the property approval world. Those two worlds are completely separate and independent from one another in the eyes of the underwriter, the worthiness of the buyer to buy, and the worthiness of the property for the lender to lend the money for that particular property, okay? Paragraph 2B on the second page of the third-party financing addendum is the paragraph that addresses property approval. Whether a buyer's contract is subject to the buyer approval component of the third-party financing addendum or not, separate from that is the property approval section, paragraph 2B, as I said, which even if the box is checked on the section right above that for buyer approval that says this contract is not subject to the buyer being approved, the property approval paragraph is independent from that and therefore is still in effect. And what that does is it gives the buyer the right to opt out of the contract, receive their earnest money back if the property is not approved by the lender. In today's world, in the state of Texas, with the market as hot as it is in most of our markets here in Texas, that usually comes down to a low appraisal. That is where the appraisal addendum comes in, and the appraisal addendum has three distinct components to it that you can choose from, okay? The first one is full waiver. This is paragraph 1 of the appraisal addendum. If you check that box, what you're saying is, my buyers agree and understand that they are completely waiving their protection afforded to them by the third-party financing addendum, paragraph 2B, property approval, right? So the property approval paragraph says they have up until 3 days before closing to terminate and receive earnest money back if the property is not approved. And again, usually because of a low appraisal. If you check box 1, your buyers are waiving that. Meaning, if the property comes in and appraises $50,000 below the agreed upon sale price, doesn't matter, the buyers are not protected via the property approval paragraph because they're completely waiving it. Obviously, that's risky. Most of the time, the box that you're going to want to check for your clients and that your clients are going to be most comfortable with, those are going to be boxes 2 or 3. Now, when do you use the appraisal addendum as a buyer, as an agent representing a buyer? Typically, it's in a multiple offer situation where you have 10, 20, 30 offers on the table for a particular property, And indeed, of course, a lot of those are going to be over the asking price. So if you're going 10, 20, 30, 40, $50,000 over the asking price, a low appraisal, which could sabotage the entire deal, does become a factor. Well, in order to make your buyer's offer more attractive, you then have the conversation with your buyer, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, we're offering 50 grand over list. List price is 500. We're offering 550, and that is probably not going to appraise at that number. You guys are putting 20% down, right? And what I need to know is, would you like to use this appraisal addendum to give your offer a better chance of being accepted? And if so, how much extra cash would you be willing to bring to closing? So if the offer was $550 on this house listed at $500,000, then the down payment, if they were putting 20% down, is going to be $110,000, right? So if they have $110,000 in cash, the question becomes, how much more cash do you have that you would be willing to bring, not in addition to the sale price, no, but to satisfy the lender's underwriting requirements in the event of a low appraisal? And they say to you, we'll bring as much as an extra $50,000 in cash. Agreed upon sale price is $550. They're willing to bring an extra 50 grand. So you would check box 2, and the number you would put in box 2II is opinion of value is, it says blank or more. In that case, you would put $500,000, right? Because that's 50,000 extra cash that they would bring. That's how you would use paragraph 2. Paragraph 3 is the one that often offers the most confusion, because paragraph 3 actually can become a benefit for the buyer and a little bit of a detriment to the seller if it's used correctly, because the purpose of paragraph 3, it says additional right to terminate. Okay, and what that means is, in addition to the buyer's right to terminate under paragraph 2B of the third-party financing addendum, which is the property approval paragraph, the buyer may terminate the contract within X number of days of the effective date if. Well, X number of days of the effective date is where you're going to put in a number of days that if it appraises low, we'll talk more about that in a second, and the buyer delivers a copy of the low appraisal to the seller within that number of days, then they can terminate. But as you know, in paragraph 2B, the buyer has up until 3 days prior to closing if the property is not approved. Well, you can actually take that all the way to closing if you put in the appropriate number of days. So you can give your buyers an advantage in that way, and the property does not have to be denied in the underwriter's eyes for property approval in order to use this one, unlike the other two. The other two are if the property is not approved. This has nothing to do with the property being approved or not. It solely has to do with the low appraisal. So let me give you an example. In the example where the sale price was $550 on a property listed for $500, and they're putting 20% down, what happens if the appraisal comes in at $549? Well, there's a very good chance that the lender is not going to deny property approval even though the appraisal came in low, because they're putting so much down and the value is there, right? Well, in this paragraph, paragraph 3, the property does not have to be denied in order to take advantage of the advantage it bestows on you in paragraph 3. So let me give you an example. In our example of agreed upon price of $550, if the appraisal came in at $540 and the buyers had put in here $500, then you're good. This does not come into play. However, if they put in here $500 and it comes in at $499, then the buyers could still terminate if the property was not approved, or if the property was approved by the lender. Let's say they were putting 50% down, property is approved by the lender, you can still terminate because it came in low, and you can terminate all the way up until blank number of days. So in this way, if you're a listing agent, you really need to be careful if they're checking box 3, because that could be detrimental to your seller. So it's a little bit confusing. As I said, the document I don't think was written perfectly, and that's where the confusion lies for so many agents. The one thing I want you to take away from here is the different types of waiver that are offered by boxes 1, 2, and 3, and the fact that the appraisal addendum does not do the same thing as the third-party financing addendum. It actually does the opposite for boxes 1 and 2, especially in that it waives that right to terminate in the event that the property is not approved, either in box 1 a full waiver or in box 2 a partial waiver based on the number that you put in box 2II. And then to close it out here in box 3, you can use this one if your clients are putting a lot of money down and you think that there's a chance that it won't appraise, but that the property might still be approved. Then, if the number comes in above that number put in box 3I, and you supply the appraisal to the seller, even if the property was approved, it didn't appraise according to that number, your buyers still have an out, which gives them an extra advantage over paragraph 2B of the third-party financing addendum. I know it can be confusing, so if you have questions about it, hopefully this cleared it up. If not, contact your broker and get their advice. If all else fails, always feel free to reach out to me. You can either call me, you can text me, you can email me. Email at kevin@allcityagents.com, or you can call or text 512-775-3846. I hope that you have a great holiday, and I hope that your business continues to thrive. If you ever need anything at all, we are here for you, allcityagents.com, and we look forward to hearing from you soon. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.